This afternoon, we'll hear some reaction to the government's proposed changes to the migration system. Coming up on the program, the Shadow Minister Dan Tehan. Also, we'll hear live from the ACTU. First, though, let's bring in our Political Editor Andrew Clennell to go through the details and two really clear changes off the back of that review, which commenced in November of last year, Andrew.
That's right, Kieran. Home Affairs Minister Clare has announced two major changes to the migration system today out of the review by former top bureaucrat Martin Parkinson, ordered by the government. Describing the previous government's skilled migration program as a guest migrant program, the minister announced that she would implement a change that both businesses and unions have been calling for, an increase in the threshold of the income of a skilled worker up to $70,000 a year from $53,900. The government will also ensure that every temporary skilled migrant has a path to permanent residency, because we want skilled workers to stay here. But in short, the government's approach appears to be to have slightly less migrants, but what it considers to be the right migrants coming to Australia.
First, as of July 1, the temporary skilled migration income threshold, also known as the TSMIT, will increase from $53,900 to $70,000. Second, I can announce that as of the end of 2023, the end of this year, all skilled temporary workers will have a pathway to permanent residency.
If the government does do all of the things in this strategy, will Australia end up with a larger or smaller migration program?
Let me be really clear. What I've talked about today is not about more people. And you asked what would happen if we implemented all the things I've discussed. The consequence of that would be a smaller migration program for the country.
So that is perhaps a little unexpected out of this. The minister described a hodgepodge system of temporary visas she says currently exist.
We have hundreds of visa categories and subcategories. It is a mess of three-digit visa codes, the 186, the 864, the 408. So complicated that if I drew you a diagram, it would look like a tangled bowl of spaghetti.
Martin Parkinson's review found we need younger people to facilitate our workforce needs, and we need to look at the net overseas migration figure, set to be more than 300,000 people a year, rather than the 190,000 permanent migration figure we usually look at when we assess immigration. This is what the review found. It found the migration system should facilitate the migration of young, highly skilled people who can help lift productivity and increase the working age population while helping to delay the effects of Australia's ageing population. I must admit, hardly the first time I've heard a government say they're going to do this. Anyway, I'll go on. It says specifically by focusing on younger workers, migration can increase the size of the working age population, thereby increasing the overall size of the economy. Clare O'Neill framed this review last year in an interview with me.
The former government sat on this problem for 9 years and let these cohorts of people accumulate and did nothing about them. They did not run a functional and effective immigration system in this country. The migration system wasn't working. We don't want to have a system where people can sit here in the country for 10 years not having an outcome on their migration decision. We've got 70 visa categories, we've got multiple subcategories, all with their own different criteria, whether this is the right way to run the immigration system. And I'll give you a clue, it's absolutely not, so we want to do it better.
Quite clear the minister knew all about this last year, but now we've got some recommendations, I guess. The government has also indicated a role for its new department, Jobs and Skills Australia, in developing who are skilled migrants, and to do that in real time, rather than rely on these Home Affairs Department lists of occupations. The Parkinson Review recommended that the government, quote, adopt a clear set of objectives and principles to guide the migration system and form the foundation of a migration strategy for the next 2 decades. To ensure a single area of government with deep expertise is charged with stewarding that system, with all visa products to be designed and delivered by that department. Also to redefine how Australia determines the size and composition of the program, move to planning migration over a long-term time horizon, e.g. 10 years, not just this 1 year figure we always see, and plan migration based on, as I just said, net overseas migration, which accounts for both permanent and temporary residents, rather than simply relying on permanent migration caps. The report also warned that Jobs and Skills Australia projects the largest employment growth by 2026 to be in Asian disabled care, with that staggering shortfall they're predicting, more than 400,000 workers by 2050. I guess that's unless the government gets cracking. Well, Clare O'Neill also flagged changes to the points test, which determines who becomes permanent migrants and citizens.
The bar is set too low, and today the points test rewards persistence, not the skills we need for Australia's future. Getting that points test right could add tens of billions of dollars to the federal budget over the coming decades and make a real difference to economic growth in our country.
So some answers to the problems identified in this review by Clare O'Neill here. But once again, as with the Defence Review earlier in the week, more work to be done on changes to come. Critics would say the government is moving too slowly. The Prime Minister would say that his approach is careful and methodical, Kieran.